Hi, I'm Sharon Gorrell, Policy Advisor for Housing and Diversity Issues with Illinois Realtors. In observation of National Fair Housing Month, I recently sat down with Cristina Headley, staff attorney with Equip for Equality, to talk about what are known as unseen disabilities. Can you talk a little bit about how these are overlooked and what might fall into the category of unseen?
Many people have disabilities which are hidden or not obvious. These can range from epilepsy to diabetes to learning disabilities and cognitive disabilities and to mental health conditions. It can sometimes be easy for us to overlook these disabilities because they are hidden. However, it's important to realize that the fair housing laws do apply to all types of disabilities, including hidden disabilities. And an important concept to understand in this area are reasonable accommodations. A reasonable accommodation is an exception to a rule, a policy, or a practice which would afford an individual with a disability an equal opportunity to enjoy and access a property. With any disability, an agent or a landlord should not assume that an individual has a disability and should not assume what an individual's needs are. A landlord might ask an individual if they have certain needs. However, an example of this would be if a landlord has certain units in their property which are accessible and have certain accessibility features.
So let's talk a little bit more detail about the provision of accommodations and modifications. Just because the disability is unseen, it doesn't mean that there isn't any responsibility to try and accommodate that person, right? So if you can dig a little deeper in that, that would be great.
Exactly. A person who refuses to make a reasonable accommodation in the policies, practices, or services of a housing complex may be violating the Federal Fair Housing Act as well as any local or state laws unless they fall within an exception to those laws. In making that determination about whether a reasonable accommodation is reasonable and is able to be made, a housing provider can request certain information to make sure that that reasonable accommodation is based on a disability-related need. For example, if a disability is not obvious and the reasonable accommodation that has been requested is not obviously linked to that disability, then an individual housing provider may ask for more information.
Let's talk a little bit about what a realtor can do to help somebody that may have to utilize a service or emotional support animal and how they can best find properties for their clients.
Yes, I recommend that realtors work closely right up front with a client to find out what they're really looking for and what their needs are, because housing properties can be very unwelcoming to animals despite the laws requiring them to let animals into their building despite their no pet policies. Therefore, a realtor should be very upfront with their clients about the different rules and policies of buildings of the property. In addition, I think if a property is resistant to an individual who needs a service or emotional support animal, that realtor can try to act as an advocate with the building to explain the individual's need for that animal and explain the laws related to service animals.